you're not going to get it. If you want to ask him questions, you can't.
Certainly have your opinion.
Thank you,
and I have
Mr.
mine.
Chairman. Thank you, General Barr, for being here today. We really appreciate your time. I want to talk with you just a little bit about some of your bottom line conclusions, because I think there's one that we need to kind of circle back to a little bit. And as I've listened to a lot of the conversation here today, one of the things we've not discussed is what seems to be the culture at DOJ and the FBI. And I know there are a lot of good people that work there, and we're grateful for their service. But every organization has a culture. And whether it's a corporate culture or a church or schools or whatever, and what seems to have happened at the FBI is there is a seedy, cynical, political culture within a group that developed. And these individuals collectively seem to think that they could work within the power of their jobs and their roles with the federal government. There was an elitism and an arrogance there, and it speaks to a very unhealthy work culture within that agency. And I will tell you this, when I talk to Tennesseans, they talk a lot about what they want to see with the Department of Justice and the FBI post all of this, and a restoration of trust and integrity and accountability. And really in Tennessee, they'll talk to me about four things. They talk a lot about health care, jobs in the economy. They're going to talk about getting federal judges confirmed and about reigning in government and holding it accountable. And there's been a lot of hysteria. This is something that grew within the ranks of the FBI. What are you doing, and what is your plan for rebuilding that trust and integrity so that the American people can say, when the FBI does its job, when the DOJ does its job, we know that is a job done right?
I don't think there is a bad culture in the FBI, and I don't think the problems that manifested themselves during the 2016 election are endemic to the institution. I think the FBI is doing its job. I mean, just this recent case out in California where they interdicted this, would-be bomber. They do great work around the country every day, and I agree with Senator Kennedy, who said, it's the premier law enforcement institution in the world. I believe that, and I say to the extent there was overreach, I don't want to judge people's motives and come to a conclusion on that, but to the extent there was overreach, what we have to be concerned about is a few people at the top getting it into their heads that they know better than the American people.
And that is the problem, and that is what we hope that you are
Yep.
you're addressing. Let's go back to this, because to the report, to produce it, I think that Mr. Mueller assembled what would be called a dream team, 19 all-star lawyers, a Watergate prosecutor, a deputy solicitor general, a fluent Russian speaker who cloaked for 2 Supreme Court justices, former head of the Enron Investigative Task Force, chief of the Public Corruption Unit in the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office, federal prosecutors who have taken down mob bosses, the mafia, and ISIS terrorists. Do you consider these lawyers to be the best and the brightest in the field?
Not necessarily.
Are they the warriors you would want on your side in the courtroom?
I mean, there are a lot of great lawyers in the Department of Justice. He assembled a very competent team.
Are they meticulous investigators who will hunt down every witness and every piece of evidence?
I think they are tenacious investigators.
Are they devoted to finding the truth?
Yes.
Are they masters at taking down hardened criminals, foreign and domestic?
Yes.
If there were evidence to warrant a recommendation for collusion charges against the president, do you believe the special counsel team would have found it?
Yes.
And if there were evidence to warrant your recommendation for obstruction of justice charges against the president, do you believe the Mueller team would have found it?
I think that they had they canvassed the evidence exhaustively they didn't reach a decision on it. But the question you've just been asking raises a point I wanted to say when Senator Hirono was talking, which is, how did we get to the point here where the evidence is now that the president was falsely accused of colluding with the Russians and accused of being treasonous and accused of being a Russian agent, and the evidence now is that was without a basis, and 2 years of his administration have been dominated by the allegations that have now been proven false. And, to listen to some of the rhetoric, you would think that the Mueller report had found the opposite.
And, Mr. Attorney General, I will tell you, that is what Tennesseans say. They say, how did we get here? How is there this allowance and acceptedness of saying that's okay? Because it's not. And people want to see government held accountable. They want agencies to act with accountability to the American people, and they don't want to ever see this happen again. It doesn't matter if a candidate is a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. They never want to see this happen again because they know that this was pointed at using the power that they had to try to tilt an election or to achieve a different outcome. And the American people want equal justice, they want respect for the rule of law, and they want fairness from the system. I have one other question dealing with social media. Tennessee Republican Party had a 10_GOP account that was set up by the Russians. And, either, I think as we look at social media, either they were willing to turn a blind eye and allow these accounts to go up because they knew they were being paid in rubles on some of these accounts, or there was just negligence. So my hope is that with all the bad actor states, whether it is Russia or Iran or North Korea or China, that you all have a game plan for dealing with these platforms in a way that you're going to rein them in for the 2020 election. I yield back.